All right, welcome back everyone to the 1 year review of my JK OT work boots. Just to give a quick rundown, a reminder on the specs of these boots. These are their stock composite toe OTs. So JK stitches all of their boots with that Technora fire thread stitching. It's the redwood smooth upper and rough out lower. And the OT models, their model is built, all of JK's boots are built on the same last. They're 3607 last, and that's a modified 55 last. So they take a regular 55 last and they widen the toe. You can see that toe. It's very wide. It's almost similar to the Munson last on my Red Wing Iron Rangers. It's a nice wide toe box. 8-inch height, Vibram Honey unit lug sole. Okay, you can get a good look at the boot right there. And so what have been my thoughts on this boot over a year? Well, there's basically everything that I mentioned in my 6-month review, but reinforced, right? I still think that this is the most versatile boot model from any of the Pacific Northwest brands in terms of being able to handle heavy duty work. As you can see, over the past year in the Public Works Department, I have put these bad boys through the ringer. Most of that rough out is matted and laid down. I put a lot of wear on these soles. As you can see, they're pretty chewed up, kicking and shovels and working and stopping through aggregate and on asphalt. A little bit of delamination, but the thing is that, and it's hard to see because of the light, but there's threads in there, so you can see the threads in there if you were to have a flashlight or something. So the threads are still holding the slip sole on, and there's no delamination between the sole and the slip sole. So this is still very, very secure as long as those threads don't get cut by anything. You can see there, I dragged my heels a little bit, so I got a little bit of wear there. But overall, these have held up fantastic. Now, this is what I meant earlier on the previous video concerning the rough out, is that the rough out, to a degree for minor stuff, is more abrasion resistant than the smooth out, right? But once it gets soft, then it'll start to scratch through and like turn itself back into rough out when you get scratches. So there's still issues with abrasion. So you still got to be careful. You can get the camera, you can see a pretty good scratch I got in it right there. And these honey soles have been great. I really like these unit soles. I do a lot of stomping on shovels, and you can really see that if I bring you down right here. I stomp on shovels a lot, and then the nature of my job, I'm a stormwater inspector. So what does that mean? Well, in public works, I like to joke how like every Marine's a rifleman. In our city, every public works employee is a laborer. It doesn't matter what you do. So technically, I'm an inspector and a code officer, and I should just be walking around doing inspections all day. But the reality is much different. So if I get a resident complaint that, you know, there's poor drainage in their area, that it rained over the weekend and there was a lot of standing water and it seemed like the water wasn't flowing, I'm going to go and I'm going to pop open every manhole lid and every inlet and every junction box all the way to wherever that neighborhood outfalls to, and visually verify that none of the lines are clogged. If I see that any are clogged, then we're going to call the Vactor crew out there to come and clear it. And I'm not just going to sit by and watch them. You know, I'm going to get in there with them and I'm going to help them out. If need be, it's happened before, I'll jump inside the inlet to visually inspect that the line's cleared, or inside the manhole to visually inspect that the line's cleared, especially some of the bigger ones. Because flooding's a big issue in our area. Our whole city's in a flood zone right by the Rio Grande River. We also deal with a lot of bardages and canals on our southern side of our city. It's a very rural area on the southern side. It used to all be county, but was recently incorporated. So these boots see it all. I mean, like just today, in fact, you know, we also take care of tire shop inspections for our city. Our department does, because Public Works is in charge of all the tire recycling. So in the morning, I came in early because the city was having an event to set up tents and food booths. And then I was doing construction site inspections, so I was stomping around construction sites. I was doing tire shop inspections today. And if need be, I'm on call. So if anything happens, we'll run out there and do that. So for example, I was on call last month, and what happened is there was a big storm that rolled in, and a tree went down in the middle of one of our main roads, cutting it's a 4-lane road, and it cut off one of the northbound lanes. And so we went out there with some chainsaws, cut it up, broke the rest of the tree down with the backhoe, and then we have a grappler truck that went by and picked everything up and cleared it. So these boots really see it all. I mean, they see some gravy days where I'm just, walking around, going to meetings, doing inspections on concrete. And for walking around on concrete, I really like the honey sole. I like the honey sole more than the wedge sole because it's more versatile than the wedge sole. And I find I can walk about 12 to 14 hours on concrete before I start to really feel it and it becomes uncomfortable, because there's just so much softness in this gum honey sole. And there's a lot of cushion here in the center. The only issue is that at the very back end, it's really hard. There's no cushion like there is right here. And so you can see I'm a little bit of a heel striker when I walk. Not too bad, but a bit. And so this is how much wear I've put on them in a year. You can see from kicking shovels and manholes, I did a good number, especially to these lugs right here, kicking them closed and then doing some shovel work right here. But overall, the sole held up really good. But like I said, after about that 12, 14 hour mark, especially if you're doing lots of work where you have heavy stuff, so like we have very large tents that we'll set up and tear down, or when there's a storm rolling, we'll do sandbags for our residents. And so they'll come and we'll ask them to hold the bag, and we kind of fill it in with the shovel for them. And then we'll have like 1 or 2 dollies that will dolly them to their vehicle and load them in their vehicle for them. And usually we'll do between 1,500 and 3,000 in an afternoon, depending on how many people show up. And that'll be just in one location. We'll have 2 locations. And like I said, we're short on dollies, and so I'll do all of those myself. So walking back and forth on pavement all day, for hours on end, that can be problematic. And at times like that, you may be better off with a wedge sole, like one of the 3 pairs I have down there, my Red Wing 10877s, Thoroughgoods, or the JK 4 fronts. But overall, I really like the Vibram sole. It's for me, it's the most versatile because, like I said, it can do a very long day very comfortably on hard pavement, but you still don't give up that traction when you're off-road. Because my issue with the Red Wings there and with these bad boys I just got for volunteer firefighting is that they don't provide good traction when you're off-road. So since I have to do so much stuff during the day, I may have to respond to a resident complaint about a drainage ditch in the area, that the culvert going under the intersection is clogged and the water's not flowing. And then in the afternoon, I might have to go to a meeting at City Hall or go do an inspection. And the issue I noticed with the wedge soles is that when I'm on concrete all day, they're great. I love them. That's why I've been wearing the 10877s and the OTs almost exclusively the past 6 months. I barely have worn the 4 fronts at all, and I barely wore my Thoroughgoods at all. The Thoroughgoods, it's rare that they're even at my house. I usually leave them in the back seat of my truck as a backup pair of boots. I'll stuff extra pair of my wool socks, but one of my cheaper pairs like a Danish Endurance or Costco pair in them, and then I'll throw them in the back of the truck just so I have an extra pair of boots in the truck. But recently I brought them in to switch out the insoles, and that's why they're here, but they're pretty soon going to be going back in the back of my truck. But back to the boots. So I was wearing these ones the other day, and it was that exact scenario I just put to you, where I had meetings in the afternoon, but I got a call. So I was wearing those boots because I didn't think I was going to be off-road a lot. But then I got a call in the morning about a drainage ditch where the culvert was clogged, and we went out there with the Vector crew, and we had just recently regraded this ditch. So there wasn't grass on the other side. It was like loose, dried out dirt from the summer heat. And so when I was walking on the sides, I kept sliding, and it was very difficult. I had no traction, and that's not an issue with the Honey Lug soles. The Honey Lug soles give you great cushion on asphalt for a good long 12-hour shift, and you still maintain that off-road traction. So that's what I like so much about this boot, is really that honey lug sole combined with the flexibility of not having the midsole all the way through. I'm gonna be getting some boots in with the full-length midsole. I have that pair of white smoke jumpers. I actually sent them in. They're at JK right now getting rebuilt as a pair of Super Duties. And I also got a pair of Frank's front ranges, some customs coming out. And I should be getting both of those around November or December based on the lead time. So I'll get to compare it a little bit more. But as of right now, I'm really liking this. There's a few times where I wish I did have a midsole, especially when I'm walking on lots of like coarse aggregate or rock, like around the railroads or things like that, because you can kind of feel it at the bottom of your boot. But 90% of the time, I'm happy to have this. I do lots of kneeling and crawling into junction boxes and getting down on all fours to be able to see inside these coverts to visually inspect. We have a bore camera to inspect these things, but the screen is so poor, the resolution is so poor, it's black and white, and no joke, the thing is so old it takes cassette tapes. So I don't really like to fuck with that piece of shit. Most of the time, if I can think I can safely get in and out of the junction box, I just do it. So because it's quicker, it's faster, and I can quickly snap a picture with my Streamlight and my camera and see if the line's clogged or not. And it's usually pretty apparent if it is, right? So these boots have been fantastic. Remember, I was saying earlier about getting that nice, low power mode, close that. Getting that nice flex in the back stay. Let me take this shoe tree out of here so we can really see the flexibility of this boot. This leather has really become a lot more supple. So in the past 6 months, I've only conditioned this boot twice. That first time after break-in, like I mentioned in the last review, and then, a couple months ago, I gave it another condition after a big rainstorm where these got literally completely submerged in water. I had already, like the rain had started to pour while we were doing sandbags for our residents. And when the rain started to pour, we were in a parking lot, and the parking lot was graded to sheet flow into a field. And we were over at the far end of the parking lot. So all the water from the parking lot came in and kind of soaked the bottom of my boots. And then we got calls that areas were flooding and we had to go out there. And at that point, my feet were wet. So I was like, fuck it. I hate how my rubber boots feel. If my feet are already wet, they're not going to get dry in the muck boots. And I didn't have a spare pair of socks on me at the time. So I just wore these the whole day and they got completely submerged. And so they were pretty stiff after that. So I gave them a good conditioning. But as you can see, they're nice and flexible. I love this JK's leather. JK's leather, from what everyone says, is a bit softer temper than the competition. But I really don't mind because it's super thick, as you can see. It's a nice thick leather, but the temper, it's soft but supportive once you break it in. So I've been very pleased with this leather. As usual, like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of rough out. As you can see, it bruises pretty heavily. It gets pretty matted with all the abrasion. But it's held up well. I haven't had any issues with significant delamination. There is a bit around the slip sole, as you can see. But the stitching is holding it together just fine. Hold on, let me go get my baby son real quick. All right, I'm back. I got the crying homie. So he's going to help us with the rest of this review. So let's just get a real quick last minute detailed look at how the boots held up over the year. And then we'll wrap this video up. So I'm going to do probably 3 more videos. I'm going to do a video on the Thorogoods, basically a 2.5 year review on the Thorogoods, a 2-year review on my OTs, and a 1-year review on my Red Wing 10877s. Sorry, I gotta move this shit. For these boots, like I said, the only thing I've noticed in terms of wear outside of sole wear, which is to be expected, is I like to lean the manhole covers on my instep. Well, if I just gotta like snap a picture to verify they're clean. And so you can see I kind of beat the shit out of some of the eyelets. If you look really close, you see that they have like a hairline crack in some of them. But the worst one's that front one, because that's where you can even see the leather for the manhole smashes down. I don't slam on my foot, because of course I'm not going to break my foot, but I'll just lean it there softly so I can snap a picture and then kick that shit back in. You can see a little bit of cream polish, and that color would be right back in there. One issue I did have, as you can see here on this boot, sorry, my baby's trying to touch the camera. You can see that. Son, my son, you're shaking the camera. There you go. See, I'm getting a little bit of unraveling, a little bit of pop stitching on that very first row, but there's 2 more to go, so I'm not really concerned about it. But that's it. The other boots, just the same. As you can see, no issues at all. Same issues of abrasion on the rough out, causing that bruising. But overall, the boots held up great. So, like I said, 9 out of 10. If they made the forefronts with the composite toe all smooth like they, if they made the OTs with the composite toe and all smooth just like they do their forefronts that I got down there, they'd be literally the 10 out of 10 perfect work boot that I'd recommend to everybody. So, you know, I was watching EDH Boulevard the other day. I love his videos on Nick's boots and Truman's. And he was saying that he doesn't really think that guys that, you know, are blue collar and beat the shit out of boots would buy a $500-600 pair of boots to beat the shit out of. But I think he was forgetting that we're fucking retarded and spend our money in dumb shit all the time. Our trucks that we beat the shit out of, and boots are no different, right? As you can see, I've put these boots through the ringer, and they've held up far better over this year of work than any pair of boots that I've ever had before. And the forefronts that you see there are no different. So if you're looking, you do blue collar work and you're looking for a good pair of work boots, I'd have to recommend the JK OT. That wedge sole leads to a better fit for this last than the wedge sole does. This lug sole, this honey lug unit sole is far better for how it balances the boot. It's more versatile, it's more durable. My only complaint is that rough out, but to be honest, you know, I rotate my boots, and like I said, I've been rotating 2 or 3 pairs all year. If I was just doing the one pair, I probably would have burnt this sole out in the 1 year and be needing a resole right now. So if you're looking to get this pair of boots, I'd highly recommend get them before your current pair is blown out, so you could rotate them and you can get a bit more life out of the soles, and that also gives you some time to save up and grab a second pair, right, that you can rotate with to hopefully, you know, get more life out of your boots and more resoles, because they're going to take a little bit off that vamp when they sand it down at every resole, and eventually you're going to need to get them rebuilt. So like that's how I have my whites out there getting rebuilt right now, and so I'll make sure to do a review on those. The soles on those are gone, and so even though it looks like there's still a bit left on the toes, so I'm sending those in as soon as I get my whites rebuilt from JK in. I'm going to send those to get the resole done. So for the updated 2-year review of the forefronts, I'm going to postpone that review until I get them back from the resole. That way it'll be kind of a double review. 2-year review on the forefronts, as well as a review of JK's resoling service. But that's it on the boots. Like I said, highly recommend anybody looking for a good jack of all trades work boot that's highly durable, better than anything they can get in the store. But maybe you don't want that high logger heel. The logger is really a specialized work boot. If you're not doing logging, if you're not an arborist or a lineman or wildland firefighter or any other job where you're in a forestry environment, hiking up an elevation, which is what that high heel's for, you're better off with a lower heel, like a standard boot heel like it's on here. And you get all the benefits of the PNW construction with this boot. You get that fire-resistant thread if you do any sort of welding or metal work or hot work. You get that thick, heavy-duty leather. You get that great arch support and last, but with a bigger toe box than all the other brands. So like I said, a good 8-inch height instead of that big old 10-incher. So look forward to getting those 10-inch loggers in, but I don't see these kind of being toppled as my main go-to work boot. But yeah, great boots, highly recommend them. Look forward to doing a 2-year review of them once I blow out these soles and get them resold. So thank you all, and look forward to seeing the next upcoming videos on the rest of the boots. Hope you have a good one.